Greetings to all the amazing people watching and listening to this. Welcome to CHEZUBA Talks, a podcast dedicated to sharing compelling stories of hope, determination, and humanity. 15 in 100 is a movement within the neuromuscular disease community. It began on Friday, September 2, and runs through Saturday, December 10, 2022, a period of 100 days ending on the 15th anniversary of Cheryl's death on December 10. Breathe with MD was founded in her memory by Andrea Klein, sister of Cheryl, to prevent devastating outcomes like hers. Let me introduce the strong lady here. Andrea works as a business analyst in healthcare IT. She is a co-author of a chapter in the textbook, Non-Invasive Ventilation and Weaning, Principles and Practice, 2nd edition. She founded Breathe with MD Incorporated and has a passion for educating others about breathing muscle weakness and the importance of self-advocacy. She served as Miss Wheelchair Tennessee 2017 and received the Miss Wheelchair America Lifetime Achievement Award at the national competition. Andrea lives with intermediate collagen 6 congenital muscular dystrophy, also classified as limb-girdle muscular dystrophy R22, and has used non-invasive ventilation since 2013. Welcome, Andrea. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that introduction. A lot to cover there.
Yes, what an amazing woman you are. Sorry to hear about Cheryl. Let me commend you for the courage that you have to take this head on. Tell us what happened and how you decided to take this.
Yes, so in 2007, my middle sister Cheryl, she was having some really unusual symptoms that we didn't understand. Her primary care physician did not understand them, and they just continued to worsen over time until eventually she rolled herself into the emergency room. At that point, it was very obvious that she was having problems breathing. And in our small hometown hospital system, they were not familiar with muscular dystrophy breathing related issues. And we really weren't ourselves because throughout our lives, we hadn't really even been informed that our breathing muscles could be affected by our neuromuscular disease. And so they basically started what I like to call the perfect storm. They did everything wrong for her. But because as a family, we weren't very informed, we were just going through the motions. We were just trusting that they were doing the right things to care for her. But in less than 10 days, she had spent time in the ICU, and less than 10 days, she passed away. Actually, on my 33rd birthday, December 10th. And, you know, it was just such a massive shock. It was a sudden death and inappropriate medical care. But at that time, we didn't know that they did all the wrong things. So because I had the same condition, I ultimately was very curious as to what exactly could happen because I was 5 years younger. I thought perhaps the same thing could happen to me. So it was through the course of that I found books by Dr. John R. Bach and pretty much pieced it all together and understood that what they did initially by providing unventilated supplemental oxygen and not checking her blood gases to see that her CO2 level was already very high, which was very obvious based on her symptoms. She was basically nodding off. She could be talking to you, having a full conversation, an engaging conversation, and she would nod off. And that was because her CO2, her carbon dioxide level, was so elevated that it was just causing her to basically black out periodically. So, but it was through the course of, figuring all of that out and trying to deal with my grief of losing someone I was so close to that I knew that I wanted to do something, and I wanted to take an awful situation and make something good of it. But it took me a few years to kind of sort that out. And
Yes.
really, kind of what was the impetus for that was meeting others who had had the same thing occur, but had maybe, had better medical care and they had survived. So it allowed me to realize that her situation was not all that unique. Others were going through this. So I felt very driven to share her story if it could prevent what happened to her, in someone else.
Okay. Um, must have been a terrible situation, going through that hospitalization. I know how it is when a relative, a close relative, a family member is hospitalized. You are running to the hospital, dealing with everything that is happening in your life as well as the person's life. And do you feel that you could have read the symptoms a little earlier? I mean, of course, we rely on doctors, but when you say her, she was nodding off, wasn't that a concern for the doctors as well?
It was for one of her doctors, but he really didn't have a good answer for that. He felt like it was something neuromuscular, that it was related to her neuromuscular disease, but it never occurred to that physician that it was related to her breathing. And she had an appointment scheduled several weeks later when she had seen her family
Mm-hmm.
physician. She had an appointment with her neuromuscular clinic scheduled, and he called and tried to move that appointment up so that it would be earlier. And I think he was able to move it maybe a week or two earlier. But that appointment actually, um, even though it was moved up earlier, it was scheduled for 3 days after she died. So it didn't come quick enough. And there was just a lack of proactive care from her neuromuscular breathing and her neuromuscular clinic. Well, I shouldn't say breathing because she didn't have neuromuscular breathing care. She just had a neurologist through a neuromuscular clinic. Um, so, things have changed tremendously today. Um, Overall, those neuromuscular clinics are better informed and better at informing patients, but it was one of these things where we were never told to prepare for breathing issues. And their idea of a breathing evaluation was to say, let's hear you cough. And I would cough, she would cough, and it would be a very wimpy, kind of a cough. And then they would just move straight on to say, can you get up from a chair? Are you able to rise from a chair? Let's see how you do. And it was just a skip right over that. And so we really felt like our medical care leading up to her respiratory crisis, that really failed her. That set her up for this premature death. And had we known, and been more informed, we might have been able to speak up and prevent some of the medical errors that occurred for her during that hospitalization.
Yeah.
And
I think,
that's
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
sorry.
So that's really what our organization Breathe with MD Inc. is trying to do is we are trying to promote that proactive approach. But a big part of that is patients don't necessarily know what they don't know. So a huge part of our mission involves educating the patient and giving them credible resources where they can learn about the symptoms and the appropriate interventions for their breathing muscle weakness. And then just really equipping them to be able to speak up what we were not equipped to do, to speak up and
Yeah,
self advocate for their appropriate care.
right. I was just coming to that, where you are a healthcare professional, right? You would know more about more than
No,
I don't know, No?
No, no, I'm not a medical professional. I'm a patient myself. I do work in healthcare IT as my day job, but I work in, an information technology type role. So no, I've just really soaked up everything that I can soak up reading wise, to understand this issue, and just have really felt driven to share that knowledge, and really in a layperson's way, to really lay it out in easy to understand terms, not in big medical jargon, if I can at all avoid that.
I think it's pretty extensive. I had a look at your website, and you have this question answer, the FAQs, where so many people are asking the questions and you are answering wonderfully, and extensive answers, detailed answers. It's not like,
Hmm.
just a cursory 1 or 2 line answer. So obviously, you have also done some research there before putting that answer there, right?
Right. Correct. Yeah, I'm just constantly reading things, and others involved with our nonprofit organization, board members, they're very much so immersed in the medical literature, and we share that within the community, and a lot of times we say that we, as a necessity, we've kind of had to become a physician, through just reading the information. We're not, obviously, but it's very frequent that an individual living with a neuromuscular disease will be more informed about that disease than the physician that they are seeing, especially if it's just a general family practitioner. So,
So, do you look up these questions as they come, or is it something that you do every, say, Monday or every week? Is there a scheduled time where you answer these queries?
Um, we get emails pretty regularly throughout the week and respond to those. And then for I think you're referring to my Ask Andrea blog, I just pull generally things that people have asked repeatedly, the same types of questions, and feature those and just go through the same information that I would have shared in an email to an individual, or even in our support group, because we have a very active um, Facebook support group called the Breathe with MD support group, where we have almost 2,000 members from all over the globe that are in that group. So it's an
Right.
incredible opportunity for others to be around other individuals going through the same problems, the same concerns, having the same questions, and we, talk through and provide answers to help people through this journey of breathing muscle weakness.
Let's take a break to understand what CHEZUBA is. Everyone at some point ponders on how this beautiful life can be made more meaningful. Maybe you're a leader trying to enhance your employees' experience at your organization. Or you already work for the community and seek volunteers with state of the art skills to strengthen your nonprofit. Whatever your situation, know that you can make a difference. CHEZUBA began with this very vision, a vision to facilitate every skill and every passion in the world in meeting a social need. Corporate volunteering has several benefits for both businesses and organizations. In parallel, experienced and enthusiastic volunteers join NGO workers, enabling them to serve the community more effectively. CHEZUBA offers everyone looking to add purpose and meaning to their lives a chance to connect or volunteer virtually with nonprofit organizations from over 100 countries around the world. Visit www.chezuba.net and explore opportunities to find meaning. CHEZUBA, your platform to do good. And now, back with our guest.
And there are obviously lifts and things, and humans, multiple people can help lift a patient onto an exam
Right.
table and off the table. So I just kind of found that very unacceptable. You if you don't have the means to assess someone's breathing in a reclined position, which is where it is the worst, if you're
Right.
living with breathing weakness, then you find a way to make that happen for the patient. So,
True.
So that's
Yeah.
really the only, negativity that we've received. And then, of course, in my personal life, as a patient, I I've had to self advocate and speak up, and I've had to essentially fire a physician that, had I stayed with that physician under his care, I probably
Mhm.
wouldn't be alive today, because he would not listen to or receive printed medical literature and accept it
Mhm.
as that was what he needed to be doing for my care. So, and
Yeah.
that's just a big part of what we run into, and it's not just in the United States. More so probably in the United States, but it's really a global issue where
It is,
individuals,
yes.
yeah, they end up seeing a pulmonologist that maybe specializes in lung disease, and they want to treat the issue with our breathing muscles, our weakened ability to get air into and out of our lungs, the
Mhm.
process known as
Mhm.
ventilation. They want to treat that as if it's asthma or COPD, and those are treated
Mhm.
very differently. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important to be aware of what you are suffering. And this patient awareness is not something that everybody has. I feel, I would trust my doctor blindly, right? But it's a learning lesson where you really have to understand what exactly you are suffering from. There is a counter side to this, isn't this, Andrea? When I read up too much information on the internet, for example, and
mhm,
maybe my diagnosis is not that severe. I'm just asking you as a
mhm.
general question. So when somebody reads up information on Google and says, this could be what it is, this could be what it is, and goes to the doctor, wouldn't that be um, crossing a line? Just thinking aloud.
Um, No, I mean, generally, most of us feel like we want a physician to partner with us in our care. And for something like neuromuscular disease, especially breathing muscle weakness, it's kind of known as a niche area, for lack of a better word, of
Mm-hmm.
care. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's actually quite common for those of us with these conditions to take printed articles that are out there that are peer reviewed, written by other medical professionals, to the
Mm-hmm.
clinician and say, these are the tests that I need. We may not necessarily make the assumption of what our end result is going to be from testing, but we at least, want to help them understand what we need from a testing perspective. And then, if they lead us down the wrong path in terms of what they want to prescribe, which the big thing that they make an error with is they want to prescribe CPAP instead of BiPAP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an area where it truly can be a life or death situation for the patient if they don't speak up to that physician and let them know that, hey, I think you're doing the wrong thing. Um, we really hope that the patient doesn't have to do that if they can find someone very knowledgeable about it. But unfortunately, for example, in my state, at one time, there was only one physician that specialized in this in the entire state. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's quite common. I could probably only list maybe 10 physicians off the top of my head in the entire United States that I would
Wow.
feel
Okay.
super comfortable referring someone to for this issue. So, because there's such a shortage of those people informed about this niche area of
Mm-hmm.
pulmonary care, patients have no choice but to try to find a physician that will
Yeah.
listen to the patient and
Right.
learn. And it's a wonderful opportunity for them, because if they've never seen a patient like us, or maybe once every 15 or 20 years in their practice, they can learn from us, and then that can become a specialty area of their care, and they could pull in many, many patients. Um, Like, for example, my provider that I go to, I have to drive 3 hours to that
Oh,
provider. And there are patients that come from several regional states just to see
mhm.
that clinician
Yeah.
because they know that she is informed appropriately as to how to intervene with these symptoms.
I also think that having a nonprofit that deals particularly with this case and you're so knowledgeable about this, it gives more authenticity and it's very reassuring to have that rather than a generalized information portal, right? So I think that is what the difference is. So you helping out people with neuromuscular disease and breathing related problems. I think
Correct.
that is reassuring, right? So, Andrea, are there any non-invasive alternative forms of care? I know you are living since 2013.
Mhm.
Very, yes. Could you just tell us about that?
Yes, so non-invasive ventilation is really the focus that we have in our nonprofit, and that is ventilation that uses an interface that's either a mask or some of us during the daytime, we have a mouthpiece interface that's connected to tubing and a non-invasive portable ventilator that we use to assist our breathing. And then, of course, part of our breathing muscle weakness is that we generally have a weak and or ineffective cough. So we're very susceptible to respiratory illnesses and pneumonias. And there's a non-invasive mechanical cough device that helps us to get a stronger breath of air to produce a stronger, more effective cough to be able to bring secretions in the lungs up and out of the body. So
Okay, right. Um, so this is something that can happen at the early stage, right? It is not something. I'm sure COVID
it's
must have been a bad situation for this
yeah,
community.
very much so. COVID really sent a lot of us trapped in our homes for 2 or more years. And during COVID, we had the year prior was when we had gotten our 501c3, our
Hmm.
IRS determination letter to be a U.S. nonprofit public charity. But we had been going out and doing outreach events where we were speaking at patient and family conferences and support groups, and we couldn't do that during the pandemic because we're some of the highest risk people. But we basically flipped our funding and our budgeting for outreach events into fingertip pulse oximeters. And so that was kind of where our pulse oximeter program was born, where we provide a free fingertip pulse oximeter to anyone with a neuromuscular disease who is in need. And that device just measures their oxygen saturation and their pulse rate. And if you develop pneumonia, your oxygen saturation will drop. So having that fingertip pulse oximeter to measure that can really be a tool for early detection of respiratory infections.
Right. So, of course, you are doing all this. Do you have a team that helps you with this?
We are all volunteer led. All there's very few of us that are involved in this operation, um, but no one with our organization is paid, and everyone that's affiliated with our organization either is already themselves living with a neuromuscular disease, like myself, or they have a loved one who is. So that really helps to ensure that they have the passion and the drive, and
Yes.
they just want to do it for the sheer reason of helping someone else who's going through the same thing that they are. So
Yeah. What is the biggest challenge that you face today, Andrea?
our biggest challenge is getting our story out there. It is kind of a complex topic. We find that a lot of people don't realize that neuromuscular diseases such as muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, congenital myopathies, they don't realize that it's more than just losing the ability to walk, that we have muscles that we use to breathe and that our breathing is affected. So just getting that story out there and finding people to get behind our mission and partner with us and help provide the funding that we need to do the work that we do. Thankfully, we're 100% virtual. So that cuts down on cost, and we operate with a shoestring budget. And a lot of us put, a lot of our own resources financially too into things that we do. But that's our biggest weakness, is just we really need to gather and engage more people in what we're doing and gain more funding, because we have really no limit to what we can do other than the funding that we receive. So we
I
have lots of ideas for additional things to do.
yeah.
So one of the things that we are so well known for is our respiratory care information card. It's a small card that fits in your wallet, and we have these available for free for individuals living with neuromuscular disease to order, to be mailed to them, up to 3 of these. And they just function as a tangible reminder of important information that's specific to breathing muscle weakness. For example, it highlights the risk related to respiratory failure and when not to give unventilated supplemental oxygen, which really highlights the key part of the error that was made in my sister Cheryl's medical care. And we are going to be expanding the availability of these cards outside of the United States later this year. So really want to get more of these out there in the hands of individuals living with neuromuscular disease.
That is so touching. That is so touching. This is an action that I think your sister would be very grateful for doing this.
Yeah, I feel like we took a bad situation and we've tried to come up with some good as a result of her untimely death, for additional things to do.
Yeah, I can assure you that CHEZUBA will do what it can to spread the word. That is the whole objective of these podcasts, to talk about nonprofits and what work you all are doing. That's amazing. It's really beautiful. And your website and anything to do with digital or virtual volunteering can be done by volunteers on CHEZUBA. So ask for whatever help you want on the portal, and you get it. Since you say you are a
Yeah,
virtual,
that is.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would say you are doing an amazing job, Andrea. That was very informative. The tips, the suggestions, the reassurance that you are extending to the community of patients who are having this neuromuscular disease is amazing. I would request all the people who are listening and watching to this, make sure that you visit this website and spread the word. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being on the show. We really appreciate your information.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate the opportunity.
With that, I sign off now and see you again in the next episode, meeting yet another remarkable person. Till then, goodbye.